And today I'm going to be speaking about genetically modified organisms. Genetically modified organisms are organisms whose genes have been taken or replaced with that of another organism. My main claim today is that without adequate safeguards, genetically modified organisms pose a threat to our environment and to human health. I'm going to first explain how genetically modified organisms cause environmental damage. Second, how genetically modified organisms harm nature and animal species. And last but not least, how genetically modified foods cause health problems among human beings. I'm going to briefly distinguish between two words for you, and that is pesticide and herbicide. A pesticide is any substance that is any substance that kills or repels animals or plant life. And herbicide is a form of a pesticide. However, it is specifically targeted to kill weeds and other unwanted plant life. So I'm first going to begin with how genetically modified organisms cause environmental damage. Cross-pollination of genetically modified seeds and pollen cause plant mutations such as superweeds. In an attempt to kill this gene-altered weed, large doses of pesticides and herbicides are used. This also kills the surrounding plant life. The greatest threat of this weed is that it has a resistance to herbicide treatments. So genetically modified seeds create superweeds. Superweeds then promote an overuse of herbicides. This overuse then adds to exposure of toxins in our environment. In an article regarding pesticide statistics, Thomas Affatato states that there are 107 active ingredients found to have caused cancer in animals and humans. And of that, 83 are still in use today. Secondly, genetically modified organisms cause harm to nature and animal species. I'm sure at some point you guys have all seen the butterfly with the big black and orange wings. That's the monarch butterfly. The monarch butterfly's existence has been significantly reduced due to genetically modified crops. These crops also have damaged its main food source, which is the milkweed plant. In 1999, a story was published in Nature magazine that introduced publicly how these modified crops produce pollens that are specifically poisonous to the monarch butterfly. Also, an agronomist, Robert Hartzler, states that milkweed's disappearance among Iowa's corn and soy fields has plunged 90% from the year 1999 to 2009. He attributes much of this loss to the farming practices used to sustain genetically modified crops. And last but not least, I'm going to explain how genetically modified foods cause health problems among human beings. Consuming genetically modified foods makes us susceptible to multiple food allergies. Breakfast cereals, popcorn, corn chips, salad dressings, tomatoes, cooking oils, these are just a few of the genetically engineered foods that we consume every day. From an online article by Tori V. Kruta, published December 2011, states that much of our food supply has been genetically engineered. As of this year, 93% of the soybeans grown in the United States are genetically engineered, as are 86% of corn and 93% of canola. As I mentioned, 93% of soybeans are genetically engineered. Soybeans are a source of protein, and a main cause of allergens are protein products. With every genetically modified organism and food, gene transfers take place, and this results in protein production. This process affects those who have been allergic to possibly only one food item to putting them at risk to being allergic to several food items. In conclusion, genetically modified organisms pose a threat to our environment and human health because the lack in adequate safeguards to prevent the unintended effects that these organisms have on plant life, such as superweed, animal species and nature, such as the monarch butterfly and the milkweed plant, and finally, the lack of safety to prevent additional allergens in the foods that we eat.
All right, the main proposition's identified. It has two parts to it and a conditional claim. So first you need to tell us that there is some reason to believe the conditional statement is likely to be true. And then I think you need a covering term that would allow those two parts to be the supporting structure of the speech rather than having them break up the main proposition. You have an excellent layout of what the contents are going to be, very clear preview. And in the body of the speech, you signpost those points as you get to them. You make very clear numerical transitions between the points. So organizationally, I think you're in good shape. There's a limitation, however, on the information that you have on those particular points. You've got some explanations about how some of this might work, but for instance, this whole chain of reasoning that you use on the first point doesn't have any illustrations or examples. At best, it's hypotheticals. The one piece of evidence that you have that seems to directly relate to the monarch butterflies is vague in the impact that it has in the relationship to genetically modified materials. The second quote actually kind of goes off in a separate direction and starts talking about cancer risks, and it just feels like it's in the wrong place in the argument. The statistical information that you have on the presence of genetically modified foods, the number in soybean, corn, and all those kinds of things, I think that's pretty good, but then you don't show us what that ultimately means. For example, you mentioned that there's a hypothetical danger of a transfer of allergens or some other kind of problem, but at best we have this vague hypothetical danger. I don't have any idea that anybody has any allergens to soybean or corn or any of those kinds of things, and I'm sure that there are some, but you're not explaining how that would be the case and how that would end up in something else that people were eating that were not the soybean or the corn or something along those lines. So on the evidence, I think it's a little bit thin on the arguments. I thought you had a very smooth delivery and you were very audience-centered while you were talking about it, and again, a good summary, so it's clear and easy to follow. All right.